There's a book that was very popular a few years ago called From Good to Great. Well, my guest today is someone who is talking about that there is no greatness unless you have goodness. In fact, that's the title of his book, No Greatness Without Goodness. What a pleasure it is to welcome Randy Lewis to 100 Huntley Street. Delighted to have you, Randy.
Great to be here, John.
Randy, this is a great story, and I don't want to talk a whole lot. I do want to set up, though, what you've accomplished through the years. Lots of years in business, but 25 really great years at Walgreens, one of North America's great drugstore chains, and world-renowned, prize-winning, recognized for all the great things it does. Your job, which I find so fascinating, is that you are in charge of some 10,000 employees that oversaw logistics and supply chain for this major drugstore, as we would call it, or pharmacy and retail outlet. It's an amazing story, and we are so honored you're here. The book itself is about you as a family man. On the cover is your son, Austin, whom you discover after his birth. After a period of time, you're realizing he's not developing with a degree of normalcy or health that you had hoped. You go through that, and then you beautifully weave so much in here about life and leadership and business, and obviously your faith in Jesus Christ. Why did you write this book?
Well, on the surface, it's a story. All we have is stories.
Sure.
And I think there's some general things in here that we share. That's why we like to share our stories, because we get to see ourselves in that story. On the surface, this is a father, like you say, has a son with autism, and then goes back to work and does something about it and launches this huge initiative that turns out better than anybody would have dreamed or prayed for.
Yeah, I want to drive it down into that in a moment.
And that it goes viral sort of in the world. That's on the surface. But the story that I think is bigger, this is a story about love. The joy of love, the pain that comes with love,
right,
and ultimately the power of love.
Yeah.
And that longing in each of us, to be that connection, that seeing each other as real people beyond that persona, and that longing to make a difference.
And this driving force of love, and obviously in your heart, a love for God and for Jesus Christ, in this spirit of love, you become, while at Walgreens, a champion for diversity in the workplace, especially when it comes to how corporate North America sees people who have been disabled in one way or another. Talk about what has happened, because it has become a national, international movement.
And it's completely by accident. People say, "Oh, you're such an advocate." I said, completely by accident. I was kind of late into the game. I think there's a lot of people that we talk about diversity, and I think most people really don't get that. And I say I wouldn't get that at all. As a matter of fact, when I talk to other companies, the first thing, if I talk about this topic at all, they'll say, "Well, we're open to everybody."
Yeah.
We really thought we were too. It was what we didn't know that we didn't know that we learned through this process, and was the most surprising thing to us. The gift of my son was to see past the obvious, to see past his challenges, to see a complete, worthy, full person. And also on the other side, to see a person who surprised me every day with what he was able to do. As we started this initiative, I would say it was about giving people an opportunity. And certainly we were a business. This is not about charity. Mm-hmm. This is about combining those two lives together, because my role as leader and as responsibility and fiduciary responsibility to shareholders and to customers and everything else, this was about business.
Sure.
But it was also the belief that, oh, by the way, we're leaving behind a whole group of people who are just 3 inches below the water to get to the top. Mm. We think we're open. Oh, by the way, yeah. But even there's certain things I saw in my son that would be so difficult for him. The idea was to enable this group of people to be as effective as anybody in the world, and that was the idea. Now, once that happened, and it was a success, and we have all the data, and it performed better than we ever thought. What astounded us was the change it had on the culture. We thought we knew how to manage people. Well, we learned that it was about people, and everybody is different. We had to motivate differently. We had to throw out a lot of rules and realize, what are we trying to accomplish here? Are we trying to enforce rules that we've had processes over?
Rules for the sake of rules.
For the sake of rules, or do we want to do great work and have an effective workforce?
Yeah.
And once you start opening the door to that, we say we're not going to have so much rules as we're going to have principles, because there's so many exceptions that come up.
And those principles were reflect values.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And once we started doing that, we empowered a lot of people. And so if you go there today, first of all, if you walk around, you'll say, where are all those people with disabilities? Because all you see is people working. But the magic is when you talk to management and they tell you about the workplace and the impact it's had on them. We call it if somebody comes and sees this, all we have to do is get somebody to come see it because they can't believe it's true. We call it the Yes, Virginia, There Is a Santa Claus Tour.
Let me fast forward on a couple of things. How many, you started it with Walgreens, but how many of what we would call household name brands of companies are now adopting the same philosophy that you launched at Walgreens years ago? They actually come and check out what you're doing, and you have been very generous to share, which is rare in business. But this is about principle-driven leadership and corporate values. How many companies now are adopting what you began at Walgreens years ago?
Well, more every day. We've been at this probably about 5 years. We invite companies in. I see Best Buy came in. They opened their new e-commerce center down in Louisville. 50% of their workforce has a disability. Lowe's launched this about 3 years ago. They've got about 300. Procter & Gamble opened up a plant in Maine, and they saw how it worked, and they want to roll this across all the Americas.
Now let me ask you this, because probably by the day is done, a lot of our audience will have had at least one Tim Hortons cup of coffee. Tim Hortons and Wendy's, there was a merger, or a merger of those brands. Tim Hortons is a Canadian icon coffee store. It's just so popular.
I'm going to have a double-double later.
We double-double and we roll up the rim to win. But did Hortons also adopt this, the Wendy's here in Canada? Is that a part of this story?
Actually, Tim Hortons is doing this. They have a huge advocate here in Canada, Mark Wafer, who's a franchisee who has multiple stores and has all kinds of people with disabilities. We can't claim that we invented this. It seems like all inventions happen simultaneously at different parts of the world. Calculus was invented at the same time, so.
There's so many things I want to talk to you about it, but there is something called the Lincoln Project, and we have a clip of that. Tell us what it is, and then we're going to take a look.
This is, I think this is the clip with Mika.
Okay.
This is when we opened up, what is this building about?
All right.
And so it tells its own story. It does a much better job than I could. So I think let's take a look at it.
Let's take a look at this clip.
There's a pride that goes with working here. So I know it's changing the community, and even on a bigger scale, it's changing more than our local community. You know, I see other businesses coming in here, and they are starting to take pieces of what we do and take it to where they are. And I've never seen a company that will allow even competitors come in, look at what you're doing, and take it.
Managing here is people-centered instead of metric-centered. Yes, we have goals that we have to achieve, but first we have to know the people that we're supervising. We have to really make a connection. You know, that relationship that you make with an individual, whether they have a disability or not, makes or breaks that person's success. You also have to be flexible and think outside the box. One solution is not going to work for every person. Everybody has a different motivator, and it's up to the manager to find out what that motivator is.
Now, the young lady that was just speaking there, graduate of Clemson University in Clemson, South Carolina. What's her role at that particular plant?
She's the HR manager.
She is that's a powerful role.
No,
Wow.
We found out when we started this effort the beautiful thing that there were people unknown to us who were preparing for their role in separate paths, and we all came together at the same time. Angie's story is she graduated from Clemson, all A's, went to graduate school, all A's, sent out 300 resumes, not a single job offer.
Wow.
She is one of our most powerful HR managers we have in the chain, and we're fortunate to have her.
You're making a difference, but you're not doing it alone. You're building a team, and together you're moving a lot of people forward in the right direction. When you look at all that God is allowing you to do, as you see people of influence and prominence across the continent, around the world, embracing these principles, what goes through your mind these days?
It's overwhelming every time I think about it. It has gone so much bigger than I would have ever dreamed. And we thought we were dreaming big.
And it is huge.
Thought we were dreaming big.
Huge.
I think it captured the imagination. One degree was because from the very beginning, and what gave it power when we were talking about it, when we're successful, we're going to give it away. I think that's when everybody said, this is not about me anymore, or me, it's about all of us.
You just inverted the pyramid. You turned it all around.
That's what gave power to the idea. It breathed life into it.
And that is the goodness that really leads to greatness. It really is. This book, No Greatness Without Goodness, is powerful. Tell us very quickly what's up with your son Austin these days. He's 26 years old.
He's getting ready to turn 26.
What's he doing? I know he's productive.
He's very productive in his own odd way. Austin works 3 days a week in a Walgreens store. He enjoys it. He drives. He drives me to the airport, and I pay him $20 every time. That's a good deal.
And that's to Chicago O'Hare Airport.
That's Chicago O'Hare.
That's a trip.
That's Chicago O'Hare. Just a little aside about him. And every experience is the same. He'll get up at whatever hour, drive me there. I'll say, Austin, this is great. You got me to the airport. He gets there. Thank you for bringing me to the airport. You were safe, and I love you. And every time it's the same experience. He says, $20. Part of his charm, part of his challenge.
Hey, that's smart.
Oh, exactly.
That's really smart.
What he's doing now, one of the companies that came through, Meyer, a big box in the Midwest, picked up this model. They just heard the story. They didn't even come. They heard the story and launched their own initiative. And they're building a center similar to ours about an hour away. And their executive vice president, we were talking one time, he said, I'd like our first employee to be your son.
Wow.
So he's interviewing over there.
Full circle.
Yes, it is.
You are a wonderful person to talk to. Folks, this is a great book. I hope you'd go on the e-store and pick it up, No Greatness Without Goodness. It's Randy Lewis. And let me encourage you, get this book for your pastor. Get this book for the business leaders in your family. Maybe you have someone in your family, a son, grandson, daughter, granddaughter, that is getting ready to go into the business world, or maybe they're developing their leadership skills now. This is a great book, not just about a missional cause in life, which is huge, but he takes you into some principles that you can absorb. What he's done is he's taken leadership principles and put them in transferable concepts where everyone can understand. And massive responsibilities, and he is continuing now in this new era of his life in the post-corporate world to continue to influence people for God and for good, so that we all can, for goodness sake, achieve greatness for his glory. I am delighted to meet you. Go to the e-store, and we'll talk to you again soon.